Hello and welcome to this course on DOM manipulation. My name is Taylor English. I will be your instructor for the course, and I'm very excited for this. I've made this course so that you can easily understand DOM manipulation, so that you can have fun changing CSS, making buttons do things, creating elements programmatically. That's what this course is for, and I've made it easy to understand for beginners and experienced people alike. I'm sure that you'll enjoy it. Now, I want to go over what we're going to talk about, but before I do that, I want to tell you guys about where to find more videos like this, more classes. You can watch free videos on computer tips and tricks and solving issues, as well as some programming at my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/C+hacker, all spelled out. There's lots of great tutorials there. And I've got a Skillshare class that you can watch called Angular 11 for Beginners, which is actually also applicable to Angular 12, I believe. But it's about learning components, routing, services, all of these great things. I think that you might really enjoy it if you enjoy this course. And you can find that at this link. I will try to put this in the description of this class, this video. And so that's just a little bit about me. I am a university student studying computer science, so there's perhaps some credibility for you, but honestly, I just really love teaching this, and that's why I want to share it. Okay, so this class, what we're going to be going over is 5 basic things. First, I'm going to show you how to set up your files. This is not really part of DOM manipulation, but it does include some important aspects of it, like linking your files correctly for your JavaScript and CSS. Okay. Then we'll jump into selecting elements, grabbing the HTML, and so that we can do things with it, saving it into variables. Then I'll talk about creating elements programmatically, so you can create them and append them to certain parts of the page via JavaScript. Then we'll go into manipulating elements with CSS and things like that. So you can, change the color of your page. You can do all sorts of things via the JavaScript. And finally, we'll talk about buttons and how you can click a button and run functions, if statements, loops. And we're going to go into some detail on that stuff. And so I hope you guys enjoy this. It's going to be really fun, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, it's time to get started with our first lesson. So before we actually dive into DOM manipulation, we're just going to start by setting up our files, simple HTML, JavaScript, and CSS files. So let's go ahead and do that. So you'll want to create a folder where you can work on this project. I've called mine DOM manipulation. You can call yours whatever you'd like. And I'm going to be working in VS Code, which I highly recommend. So let's create a file, and we'll call this index.html. Okay, now let's start, let's save that. Create our HTML tags. Inside that, we want our head tag, and within that, we want our title tag. So I'm just going to say DOM manipulation. Okay. Now below the head tag, you'll want to put a body tag. That's not what I meant. Oops. Okay. And within the body tag, we can just say, let's put a paragraph tag and say, hello world. Great. Oops. Okay. So now let's create a JavaScript and CSS file that we will start using in the next couple of videos. We're going to call this one app.js. And to make sure this one's working, I'm going to do console.log hello world again. Okay. Now to link that up, below the body tag, we're going to put a script source tag, and we're going to put app.js. Now this is important because we want the JavaScript to run after the rest of the HTML has already been, laid out. And so it goes after the body tag. And the syntax for this is script and then source equals and then the name of your JavaScript file. Again, you can call yours whatever you'd like. Now let's make our CSS. I'm going to call this style.css. And to make sure this is working, let's do a body and we'll do a background color of green. Okay, now we link the style sheet, the style.css, up here in the head tag. So let's create a link tag. And you can go down to CSS here if you've got the Emmet abbreviation on. But all that's going to do is tell the code that it's a style sheet and give the link to the style.css. So this is our basic syntax. This is all we really need to get started. Very simple website. Let's go ahead and test it. Now in this class, I'm going to be using a VS Code extension to test this, and I'll show you what that is and how to get it. Let's see. So this extension is called Live Server. If you go to your extensions tab here in VS Code, you can just search Live Server. Should be one of the first things that pops up, and you'll just want to install that. Okay. Now, what this is going to do is when we come into our HTML file, we can right-click and say Open with Live Server. We can also stop the server here, and there should also be a button down here that says Go Live. This button doesn't always show up, so I typically just rely on this right-click menu. So if we open with a live server here, then this is what we get. We get our green hello world, so we know the style sheet is properly connected and configured. The HTML is good, it says hello world, and if we press Control-Shift-I on Windows, then this will open up our console and it says hello world again. Okay, so we know that everything is working properly. Our JavaScript is properly connected. Everything's working in that front, and you don't need to worry about this error message. It's not super relevant to what we're trying to work on right now. But this is the basic setup. So just a quick recap, you want 3 files, index.html, app.js, and style.css. And remember, app.js is linked in a script tag below the body tag, but still within HTML. And the style sheet is within a link tag up in the head. Okay? All right, now I'll see you in the next one. All right, now we're going to talk about selecting elements. So within DOM manipulation, it's very important that the code knows how to get the various HTML elements and do things with them, okay? So we're going to start by going to our app.js file, and we can remove this log statement here. Now, currently on our website, we have our hello world right here. Let's say that we want to select hello world so that we can manipulate it or do something with it. Now, right now, hello world is just a paragraph tag, okay? It doesn't have any classes or IDs. So I'm going to show you how to select it just like this, but also how to select it with a class or an ID, okay? Now, to select it like this, actually, I'm going to start with using an ID or a class. So let's start with an ID. Within our paragraph tag, type ID, and we'll just give it the name hello, okay? So now let's go to app.js, and what we want to do is we want to store the paragraph tag within a variable so that we can do things with it. So we're going to say we'll say paragraph equal. Now we're going to type document. Document is how you access the document object model, right? That's what we're using. So almost all of these commands, if not all of them, start with document. So we say document dot get element by ID, and make sure that the D in ID is lowercase, okay? Now, VS Code is really great and should be suggesting these things for you. If it's not, then check out the extensions store to find a free JavaScript extension for syntax highlighting, okay? So we said get element by ID. Now the ID of this is hello. So we put parentheses, and in single quotes, we'll say hello, okay? Now, what we can do is we can do a console.log on the paragraph element, and it will show us what we've actually selected so we can see what we're doing. So if we save it, and oh, I forgot to mention in the last video, every time we save changes in these files, the live server will automatically refresh the page so you don't have to. So if we come in here, it still says hello world. So press Control Shift I, or I believe that's Command Shift I on Mac. If not, just look up what that command is, and you'll see that it logged this element. So if we look back at the code, we said paragraph equals document.getElement by ID. So what we've done is we've effectively grabbed the element out of the HTML and we set it equal to this variable. Okay, so now let's explore this a little bit and let me show you some of the properties that this has. So if we go to paragraph here and we press dot, it's going to suggest all sorts of things. There's all sorts of attributes that we can access from this. Let's say, for example, we want to access the text inside. We can say text content, okay? See, and now we're logging the text content, which is hello world. Now there's a number of things you can access from here, and we'll get more into that later when we manipulate styles and make buttons interactive and that type of thing. But for now, that's how we select an element. So let's say that it's got a class. Okay, we'll do the same thing with hello, but this will be a class. So instead of saying get element by ID, we want to use get element by class name. Now the class we put in here is hello. And let's see what happens when we log this. Okay, you can see it brought up something called HTML collection. And if we open that up, it's an array. And the first element in index 0 is a paragraph tag with a class of hello. So what if we just wanted the element? How do we select that? Well, the thing about classes is multiple objects can have a class. And so if you select the elements by class name, it will get an array of every element that has that class name, even if there's only one. Now, IDs are different because you only should put an ID on one element. So when you say get element by ID, it's going to give it to you directly because there should only be one element with that ID. So if we want to access the specific element, and we know that within the code, it's the first place where we see this class of hello, then right after this, we can put brackets to access the 0th index. And that's going to access that first element, which will be the tag that we want. So if we save this and come back here, you can see that we've selected that whole element, okay? Now we can do the same thing if without using class or ID. Let's say, for example, we just want to select all the paragraph tags, okay? So what I can do is come up here and say document dot get element by tag name. Okay. And remember, the tags are these things right here within the carets or whatever you call those things. Okay. So we can get all the paragraph tags by saying get elements by tag name P for paragraph. Make sure that's in quotes. Okay. So what does that show us? Again, that shows us an HTML collection because we can have multiple elements, right? Multiple paragraph tags. Okay, so let's see what it's showing us here. Okay, so in the 0th index, we have our paragraph tag. And in the first index, it's got something also. I'll have to check and see why that is. Okay, so I just took a break for a second and I figured out what the problem was. The problem was that in our HTML, I had 2 opening tags for the paragraph tag instead of having the slash here to close it. Whoops. So it thought that there were 2 separate p tags. So I fixed that. And if we come over to app.js, we can see it says get elements by tag name. We're getting the p. And then if we come over here and we look in Chrome here, you can see it's an array with just 1 element. Okay. Now, again, we do the same thing. We can do the same thing as we did with classes, where we can select the 0th index and see the exact tag. Okay, so we've learned how to select elements by tag name, by ID, and by class. So what's next? Well, let's say that you want to select an element based on several attributes and not just its tag, its class, or its ID. That's where the query selector comes in. Okay, so let's say that we've got this hello world paragraph tag here. Let's give it a class of hello. And then we'll have another paragraph tag that also has a class of hello, but it also has an ID of, let's say, pancakes. Okay. And so we can say something here. Pancakes are amazing. Okay. So if we output, let's see, if we get elements by tag name and we output that, let's see what comes up. Okay, so we've got this array again. There's 2 elements. Now, even if we say get elements by class name and we say hello, it's going to return 2 objects. So we can specify a little further what we are wanting. So if I want it to have a class of hello and an ID of pancakes, that's where I can use the query selector. So what we will want to do is come over to app.js and let's say document.query selector. Now, query selector, basically you can give it several different attributes of an object and it will find them rather than specifying ID or class or tag name. So here, let's say we want a paragraph tag and we know that it has a class of hello. So we put a dot hello. The reason we put a dot is because that's the syntax that we would use in our style sheet. For example, if we wanted to access the hello class, we'd say dot hello, and then we'd give it styles, right? So that's the same thing we're doing here. Now, IDs are selected using a pound sign. So I'm going to show you that in a minute. Let's output this and see what comes up. Okay, so when we selected the hello class, it chose the first object that it could find. And that's kind of how the query selector works, is it finds the first object that matches your parameters. Okay, but that's not what we wanted. We wanted pancakes are amazing. So we can specify further and say pound sign pancakes. If you remember, we had the ID of pancakes here. So now if we output that, it got the element we wanted. However, because pancakes has an ID, that makes it unique, and we don't actually need all of this. We can get rid of most of these things and just say an ID of pancakes. And that has the same effect, right? That's specific enough for it to know what we want. And so you can see that we have similar syntax for doing the same thing. There's different ways of doing it. So if I say paragraph 2, okay, so this is fairly similar syntax. Right here, we have a query selector that gets the first thing with an ID of pancakes. And here we just get whatever has an ID of pancakes, right? So you can see there's different ways of doing the same things. Okay, now let's say, when we were looking at the p.hello, it popped up with just the first thing it found, which is what query selector does. So what if I want everything that matches that now? Okay, well then what I can do is I can use something called query selector all. Okay, and we'll put in the same thing. We'll say p.hello. And that gave us this node list array of both of the attributes. So why have query selectors at all if we have the other ones? Well, query selector is, if you have to do a lot of these kind of selecting different elements, query selector can be nice because you don't have to remember get element by ID, get element by class name. Like, you don't have to type all that out. You can just say query selector and then specify, oh, this one is a class, this one's an ID, this one is just a tag. So, if we wanted just the tag, we could get rid of the .hello and just say query selector all P. And that's going to find everything that's a P element, right? So these are the various ways of selecting elements, and that's going to come in real handy when we start manipulating CSS and using buttons and things like that. Okay, so I'll see you in the next one. Now we're going to learn about creating elements, okay? Basically, we're going to programmatically create various tags, add classes and IDs to them, styles, all those sorts of things, and we're going to insert them into the page, okay? So let's get started. In our app.js file, I'm going to remove all of this. And let's say that we want to create a button, okay, below this. And I'm also going to get rid of the pancakes are amazing. Okay. So let's say we want to make a button below this that will, later on, will make it change the background color of the page. But for now, we're just going to create it and put it in the page, okay? So what we want to do is create an element. We'll call this button, okay? We'll be very creative. And set it equal to document.createElement. Similarly to the selectors we've been using, you'll do single quotes and then the name of the tag, which is button. If it was a paragraph tag, you'd say P. If it was a div tag, you'd just say div. Okay, so pretty straightforward. So we've created a button. Now this hasn't done anything to the page because all we've done is set it equal to a variable, okay? So let's console.log this and see what we have. So we have just an empty button tag, okay? So let's add some text to it. To do this, we need to create what's called a text node. So let's say let text node equal document dot create text node. Okay, now let's say we want to, we'll have it say change background color, or just change color to be simple. Okay, and so now if we go back and look, oh, we've created the text node, but we haven't put it in the button. So what we need to do is say button dot append. Actually, we're going to append child, and we'll say text node. So what that means is now the button or the text is a child, or basically it's inside of the button tag. So if we say save, then it shows us that we have this button here, okay? And it has all of these attributes. So we've got our button and we want to put it on the page, okay? So let's say we want to insert it right after this hello world tag, okay? So let's change this to an ID to make it easy to select. So what we need to do is select the hello world tag and then put the put our button right after it, append to it. So what we're going to do is say let hello world equal document dot query selector, and we're going to say pound hello. And after that, we want to say hello world dot append the button. Okay, so now you can see we've put the button right after it. It doesn't do anything, it's just text and we can click it, okay? But that's kind of cool, right? Let's see. So we've got it right after the text. To make it look a little prettier, a little easier to look at, we're going to change some of the styles. So in style.css, go to button. So this is styles for the button, all button tags, technically. And we want to say display block, because currently buttons default to an inline display, which means that they can display right next to text or other objects. A block display will put it under it, okay? It'll display it like blocks. So if we say display block, that will be below this, okay? And we want to give it some space between hello world and itself. And so let's do a margin of, actually we'll just do a margin top of 5 pixels. Okay. Maybe 10 pixels. Great. So we've got our button, we've created it. So what else can we do with this button while we're creating it? So the interesting thing is it's almost easiest to create the button and put everything inside of it before you throw it out onto the page. Now, of course, you can select it later and do things with it, but if you know that you want a class, if you know you want styles with it, it's easiest just to put it all together in one package before you send it to the page. I'll show you what I mean. So we've got our text node. Let's say we also want to change the style. Now, in the next video, I'll get more into style manipulation and that type of thing. But very briefly, let's say we want, let's do button.style. And now we can say color. Actually, background color would be, so color would just be the text. But if we say background color, then we could say light blue. Now you'll notice this syntax is different than CSS, and I'll just tell you how that works briefly before the next video. Normally in CSS, if we wanted the button to be blue, light blue, or whatever, then we'd say background dash color light blue, like that. The difference here in JavaScript is that background color is a single word using camel case so that the first letter is lowercase and the following words are uppercase. Okay. So background color light blue. Let's save that and get rid of that. So let's go look at it. Okay. So it doesn't appear to have worked. Let's see, we got an error, button.style.background color is not a function. So what it's saying is, it's saying, hey, you can't put a parameter in there because technically this is treating it like a function and you can't do that. Okay, so it looks like that's not what we're supposed to do here. So instead of using it as a function, we're going to say equals light blue. Let's try that. Okay, it's a little hard to tell, but it definitely is different. It's not white anymore. Let's see if we can do a more distinct color. We'll just say blue. Okay, wow, you can definitely see that. Okay, but what if we want to, we can change the text color, right? We can say button.style.color equals white. Great. Okay, so that's sort of how we append these different objects. Okay, so we have to create, imagine it's like a pyramid, right? We have to, at the base level, we need our element, our button. And then one level above that, our text, or anything else that might be inside of the object we create. Okay, one level above that is sort of our styles and everything else. Okay, so you could do this with any element. It doesn't have to be a button. It could be a div. It could be a header tag. You could really do whatever you want, okay? So we've inserted that button, and in a couple of videos, I'm going to show you how to make it change the color of the background here. But that is just a quick view of creating elements. All right. I'll see you in the next one. All right, in this video, we're going to talk about manipulating elements in the DOM. So currently, we've got our button here, we've got our hello world, and we have our background color. Let's see what we can do with these elements, starting with that background color. It's not very pretty in my opinion. Let's change it to a nicer color. So in our app.js, I'm just going to create some space and come down here a little bit. So let's say we want to select the body because the body is what we used to create a background color of green. So here we can say background color. Oops, no, sorry. We can, okay, first we have to select the body. So let's say let body equal document dot get element by tag name. You could also use query selector. And we'll say body. Oh, I believe you have to capitalize this one fully because it's a special tag. Let's see if that works properly. Okay. Okay, yes. So, okay, sorry, I was wrong. This does not need to be capitalized. So what happened is when I typed in body right here and logged it, it gave us this HTML collection. So essentially an array of elements. That's what that is. And it said, okay, at the first index, index 0, we have one body tag. It's a little bit silly because the way the tag selector works is it creates an array because we could have multiple tags, right? If we say get elements by tag name P, it'll get all the paragraph tags. Now, it did the same thing with body, but we can only have one body tag. So what we're going to do here is select element 0, okay? That gave us our body, and you can see it select, when we highlight our cursor over it, it selects the whole page. And if you open that up, you can see everything is down there. Okay, inside of it. Okay, so now we've got the body. Let's change its background color. So say body dot style. Style is how we access the style property, right? Okay, so let's say background color equals. Let's give it, let's see if light pink is a color. I have no idea. Let's try it. Ah, there we go. Yeah, I like that. That's a nice color. So let me show you the difference between these functions that we used earlier and these equal signs. So in the last video, you know, I discovered, I made a mistake where I tried to use background color and do something sort of like this, where I said like background color, parentheses, light pink, right? But the thing is, it's not a function. Create text node is a function. It's creating something made of text. Create element is a function, right? Query selector is a function. But these are properties of elements. Okay, let me show you what I mean. Let's select the let's select, well, we can select the body tag, okay? So we've already selected the body tag. Let's log it. And let's click on that. Okay, what do we get? Okay, body actually may not be the best example. Let's try the button, or let's see. Okay, sorry about that. So the body tag is a little bit weird. So we're going to select our paragraph tag that says hello world, okay? Just for this example. So let's say let P for paragraph equal document dot query selector pound hello, okay? And then right below that, we will log P, okay? Okay, so we have logged P right here. Okay. So we've selected this paragraph tag. But what we want to do is, to get a little bit more detail, is we're going to put the P before the pound right here in, in the query selector. So that way we can access more information about it. It's a little bit confusing, but when we log it, you'll see that we have this P pound hello. If we click into that, you'll see there are all of these things. These are properties of our paragraph tag, okay? This right here, this paragraph tag has tons of properties. Most of them say null, okay? We're not using them. But some of them we are. For example, style. If you click on style, you'll see a list of every style, basically. Okay? Every possible style for this object, again, most of which we're not using. But let's say we want to change the color of that hello world, well, then we can come look in here and find color. So my point with showing you this is to show you why this isn't a function, okay? For why when we try to change the background color of body, oh, whoops, we said body dot style dot background color equals light pink. We did that because this light pink, or sorry, the color was a property under the style property for this element. Okay, so if that was a little bit confusing, it's okay. You don't have to worry about it. Just know that when you are modifying some piece of an element, you know, it's CSS, it's, you know, what happens when you click it, all these things. These are properties that you set equal to a value, okay, which are different from these functions right here. Now, when in doubt, if you look up, you know, change style background color for an element online, you'll be able to see the syntax for this if you forget. Or if you look up create text node, you'll be able to see the syntax, okay? From a website like Mozilla or W3 Schools, there are lots of websites that will tell you the exact syntax of these things. Okay. But back to what we were doing, we were changing the background color here. Let's see what other properties we could change. Okay, while we're selecting our P tag, if we click P and press period, we can see all sorts of things. Okay, so maybe we want to change the text. And click here on the text content. So we know from earlier that the text content is hello world. So what if I want to change that? Well, I can set this property equal to, I like pie. Okay. And now you can see that the JavaScript has manipulated this element. It's changed its text content property. Okay, so if you want, I would encourage you to look through the properties of each element. You can do this in VS Code simply by pressing the dot after something and scrolling through this list. It will tell you all sorts of things that you can access. For example, next sibling, which will tell you what element is right next to it. Or we could look up inner HTML. That will show you what HTML is inside of it. You can ask if it has a certain attribute, okay? All these sorts of things. Actually, let's try that one. Has attribute. Let's say, so I'm gonna show you a little bit more logic in the code with this has attribute, okay? So I'm gonna get rid of that. And let's see, let's do an if statement. We'll say if P has the attribute of color, right? Has attribute color, then we'll do something, okay? Oh, actually, sorry, not the attribute of color, the attribute of style dot color. Okay, I'm not sure if that exact syntax will work, but we will console success. Let's see what happens. Okay, looks like we didn't get anything. What if we just say style? Still nothing. Perhaps we need to add a color. So let's try p dot style dot color equals blue. Okay. Oh, okay, so look at this. So it logged success because it noticed that it does have the attribute of style. Let's see what happens if we do style dot color. Okay, so that doesn't work for it. So attributes in HTML elements are these things right here that you put within quotes, that you put within the element, right? So I could see if hello world has an ID of hello by coming over here and saying if, let's see, let's do p dot we can do p dot get attribute, and let's say we want the color, okay, and we'll set this equal to blue. So what is this doing? So it says get the attribute of color. Oh, sorry, that's not what we were doing. I just spaced out a little bit. We wanted to know the ID if that was hello. Okay, so we got the attribute ID, which is right here. Okay, and we want to say if that attribute equals hello, then console a success, which it does. So if we were to say if it equals goodbye, no success, right? So you can kind of see how this is working from an overhead perspective and see that there's a lot of possibilities with JavaScript logic where you could use if statements. You could use loops. For example, you could use a for loop and say, for numbers 1 through 10, create these elements or change their colors or do all sorts of things. The possibilities are basically endless. Okay. So I've shown you a lot of things here. I would recommend, if some of this was confusing, try rewatching the video, okay? And just go through step by step and learn what you can do to manipulate these objects, okay? But just know that a basic recap, each element has properties. It has like hundreds or 800 properties. And some of those properties have properties within them. For example, the style has color, background color, margin, all those sorts of things, right? And you can access those using these various functions off of elements. You type the name of your variable and you type a period, and it gives you all sorts of things, right? So I would explore these. If you don't know what one is, look it up online and it will tell you the syntax, it will tell you how to use it and all the things you can do with it. But I'll see you guys in the next video when we make this button do things. All right. In this video, we're going to make our button do some cool things. We're going to make it change color and maybe output something in the console. So let's get started. Okay, so to make things a little bit simpler for now, I'm going to comment all of this out and I'm going to make our button, I'm going to hard code it into the HTML just to make it a little bit easier to manipulate. Okay, so, all right, we've got our change color button. So let's say if I click this button, I want it to change the color to blue. Okay. So what we're going to do is I need to create a function that when it's run will change that color. So let's write function and I'll call this change color. Okay. for now, let's just do console.log changing color. Okay. Now in our HTML, we need to trigger this somehow. So in our button tag, we're going to put an attribute called onClick. And so, you can get from that when we click it, it's going to do something. And we're going to type that function, change color. Make sure you have the parentheses. Very important. Okay. So when I click this button, we want it to log changing color. Okay. If I open up the console and I click it, changing color. Okay. And you can see the more I click it, the more it repeats that message. So now let's do something cool with it. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to select the body and change its color. So we're going to say let body equal document dot get element by tag name. We'll say body, and remember we have to select element 0 to access the body. And we do that because when we select tags, it gets an array of every tag of that type. And body does that too, even though we only use one body tag. Okay, so we select body, and then we say body.style.background color equals blue. Okay, so now when we click our button, wow, we just changed the color to blue. Okay, but if you click it again, it doesn't change back. Why is that? Well, if we look at the code, we're only telling it to change it to blue. If we refresh the page, it'll go back to green, but as soon as we click that button, blue. So I'm going to show you how to make some logic to change it from one to the other. So let's say we've selected this tag right here. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of this. Let's create an if statement. We'll say if body dot style dot background color equals, make sure you have that double or triple equals, so that you're not setting a single equals would set it like a variable, set a value to a variable. We want a double or triple equals to make sure we're comparing a quality. And you can look up the difference between double and triple equal signs online. So if the color equals green, right, because I think that's what we chose earlier, if it equals green, then change it to blue. Okay. Else, meaning the background color is already blue or something else, else change it to green, right? So what this says is it gets the body element and it says, okay, if the background color is green, change it to blue. If it's blue, change it to green, right? Because we have this else statement. So if it's not green, change it to green. Okay, we go look at it. Oh, there we go. We're changing between blue and green every time we click it. Okay, now, as you can see, there's a lot of text going on here in this if statement and right here. And that's been a trend throughout this course. If you look up all of these things we've created, there's a lot of text involved. And that's sort of the nature of vanilla JavaScript or just plain JavaScript. One way that we can shrink that down is if we're going to use something multiple times, for example, this background color, we can set the background color equal to a variable. We could say let background color equal body dot style dot background color. That way, we can just keep this background color part, and that significantly reduces the amount of code that we need. Oh, but did it work? Let's see. Okay, it didn't work. Let's see if there are any errors. No errors. Okay. Okay, I realized the problem. This is a good little coding lesson for us both. See, here I set the background color equal to whatever the current background color is. But here I was just changing this variable's color. Now, this variable, once it's been set, is detached from the body element itself. So we're changing this, but not, you know, what we want to be changing. And so I apologize, I made a little mistake in explaining this to you. These two things would still need to be body dot style dot background color, right? Because we do want to change that original background color, but we can still check the background color like this using this variable, which improves readability in the if statement. There we go. And now we got it working again. And so there may be ways to get around this if we were to take more time and dig into it. But you might be wondering, well, what's the benefit of, declaring this up here and then that down there? In this situation, there's not much benefit, right? We could definitely write out body.style.background color right here. But let's say we wanted to use this background color somewhere else and say, well, if background color blah, 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 right? It's nice to just have it shorthand and very readable because it's important to have readable code. You want to be able to look at it and see what you're doing, okay? And so that's a little hint into what we can do with the background color. Now, we'll take it a step further and do a little console.log. And let's say this will be blue. And this one, where's my mouse? There we go. Console.log green. Okay. So now if we open up the terminal, oh, there we go. Blue, green, right? So it's kind of cool. You can imagine all sorts of things you do with this. And where's the real world application? Well, every website you go to basically has buttons. And when you click them, they're running JavaScript that's doing all sorts of cool things, calling functions that get data from the internet that, send messages. You can do unlimited things really with this functionality. So this is just a very basic look at it. And it's something I wanted to share with you earlier when I was talking about shortening your code using variables, is that there are a variety of what we call JavaScript frameworks out there, which are essentially somebody took JavaScript and made a version of it that has additional functionality or easier syntax in the code. So that's called a framework. And you may have heard of these. Some are jQuery, Angular, React, Vue. These are all JavaScript frameworks. They're just different ways of writing the code. They each have different syntax, different features. And so if having that shortened code is really important to you, then I would suggest looking into a framework. It takes some time to learn, but it can be a very rewarding experience. Oftentimes, when you have a large, complex app, website that you're trying to do things with DOM manipulation, it can get messy quickly. I mean, you can imagine having all of these functions and just all this code written out here. it's a lot, and that's just the nature of vanilla JavaScript or plain JavaScript. But you know, this change color function, if I were to do this in Angular, for example, it may only take 3 lines of code. Who knows? Um, it can just be much easier to do things more quickly. Um, but this is a it's important to know these things because a lot of these DOM manipulation principles that we use with plain JavaScript are used in those other frameworks. Okay. And I know that I showed you a very basic example of just changing the background color through this button. But in the next video, I'm going to talk about the project that I want you to do that can be really rewarding, that can really teach you a lot. Because the best teacher, I think, is doing it yourself, just digging in, trying things. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but that's all for this video. This just a quick recap. We talked about making our button do things. So we used the onClick attribute and set it equal to a function. And that function is important. We had to declare that. And inside of it, we could do whatever we wanted. You know, you don't even have to manipulate the HTML. You don't have to manipulate the page in this function. It could do something totally different. You know, it could compute math. It could, you know, there's a number of things, okay? But basically, we selected the elements and did an if statement to change the color depending on what the background color was set to. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, guys, you have made it to the last video of this DOM manipulation course, and you should be proud of yourselves. The skills that you've learned here are going to be very important in any web development that you do, and really just improve your coding knowledge overall. These are things that really fascinate me, that I enjoy, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. And to help you enjoy it a little bit further, to help you learn more, I'm going to talk about the project a little bit right now. So for this project, it's very simple. I just want you to explore every function you can find. Anything that looks interesting to you, I want you to try it. So if you have an idea of, you know, something simple you want to do, like, hey, if I click this button, I want to change the text on the page to something, or I'm going to calculate some math. You could make a basic calculator, or really whatever you want. I want you to go try it. Explore functions. Use the capabilities of VS Code that I taught you, as well as the Chrome developer tools, to view the attributes, to select the things you want to change. There's so many things you can do. You could even try making a web page completely out of it's escaping me, completely with elements created by JavaScript with no hard-coded HTML or CSS. That could be a cool challenge. But really, I just want you to have fun. I want you to explore and share your creations with others. If you learn something, show it to someone else. You know, I think that taking the time to dig through this and learn it yourself a little bit and share your success with others is it's just going to feel really good. Okay. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this course. I hope that you'll take me up on this project and just try it for 15 minutes. Try to manipulate objects, try to do something cool with JavaScript and DOM manipulation. If you guys enjoyed this course, please check out my other courses. On Skillshare, I have one on Angular and components, services, all sorts of things, routing. There's a great Angular course there. I'd recommend go check it out, and I will be publishing more classes hopefully soon in the future. So please check those out as well and share these with your friends that could really benefit from this knowledge. But until then, my name is Taylor, and it has been a pleasure being your instructor, and I wish you well.